Good morning. My name is Ian McCartney. I'm a Deputy Commissioner in the AFP. Today is a really good day for law enforcement. In 2021, the AFP Commissioner revealed the details of Operation Ironside. The lives of many serious criminals dramatically changed when they realised their phone and those who vouched for it had betrayed them. The Commissioner warned organised crime that AFP would come for them again and at scale. And today is the day we've done that. Over the past 2 days, about 700 members have executed and assisted in search warrants across 4 states to arrest those who have been utilising a dedicated encrypted comms platform that we call Ghost. The AFP alleges Ghost was created by criminals and solely for the use by criminals to facilitate crime. Operation Kraken was set up by the AFP to take down Ghost and to charge its administrator, a 32-year-old Australian living in New South Wales. We allege hundreds of criminals, including Italian organised crime, motorcycle gang members, Middle Eastern organised crime and Korean organised crime, have used Ghost in Australia and overseas to import illicit drugs and other killings. Up to 50 people in Australia are facing charges, and action has been taken by overseas law enforcement agencies to arrest people in their own countries for the use of Ghost. Importantly, the AFP has prevented the death and serious injury of 50 individuals in Australia because we've been able to decrypt these messages. Ghost is now just another criminal encrypted platform that has been disrupted by law enforcement. Encrypted platforms like Phantom Secure, EncroChat, Sky ECC and Anom. I want to thank our Commonwealth and state partners, in particular New South Wales Police, South Australia Police, Victoria Police and Western Australia Police. I'd also like to acknowledge the great contribution made by our international partners through the task force at Europol. Finally, I really want to acknowledge the AFP members who provided great work in relation to this operation. From the investigators, the intelligence members, the tech experts, and all of the other support capabilities in the AFP. Taking down dedicated encrypted communication devices takes significant skill. But the holy grail is always penetrating criminal platforms to access evidence. And this is where the AFP is world leading. This time the AFP engineered a new technological solution. As the administrator regularly pushed out software updates, the AFP was able to modify those updates. In effect, we infected the devices, enabling us to access the content on Australian devices. Once again, Australian organised crime has been outsmarted by very dedicated and intelligent members in the AFP. Thank you, and we're happy to take questions.
Can you talk a little bit about the 50 threats to life or serious injury that you say you're able to stop? Can you give us an example of what one of those might be? I don't know if you can use names, but maybe a scenario that you've managed to
Sure, I'm a past Assistant Commissioner.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the AFP was able to mitigate 50 threats to life, and with those, it's a range of threats from aggravated assault to extortion, kidnapping to actual threats to life. There was, on one occasion, we could see over the platform an image of a person who had a firearm to their head. We had an hour in which to respond to that threat and pass that information to our state and territory partners to mitigate that threat.
And were they rescued?
Yes, they were.
Are you able to explain how exactly you cracked into this platform and how you were able to see these messages and access them in real time?
Really smart policing. So I think again, the importance of international cooperation. We were provided information by the French gendarmerie, and we were able to act on that information. In some respects, that information provided a foot in the door in relation to this encrypted platform. And I think the really clever technical people in AFP were able to develop a technical solution where we were able to actually infect the devices to de-encrypt the messages so we can monitor those messages.
Were there any threats to life or harm that you weren't able to act on?
We were able to mitigate all the threats to life and harm that we came across on this platform.
Is it hard to do that when you're worried about trying to preserve the fact that you've got access to the app? So are you did you have to come up with excuses as to how you were able to mitigate those threats to the people you were stopping?
Well, I think in relation to this work, we've got very set protocols in place in terms of how we handle these matters. We prioritise the safety of individuals over collection of evidence. So there were a number of strategies put in place. There was arrests that happened. We obviously arrested a number of people yesterday, but there was arrests that have happened over the last couple of months to deal with these threats of life, but also to preserve the ongoing evidence collection process.
Can you detail a little about the arrest of the mastermind of this, or the alleged mastermind of this?
Well, it is before court, but I think what's really significant is the administrator of this dedicated encrypted platform is actually based in Australia. It's been the first time we've identified someone who set it up in Australia, and it's obviously the first time we've undertaken an arrest and a charge of an individual. It's highly significant.
Can you detail his reaction then when he was arrested?
Slightly surprised.
What can you tell us about his background?
32-year-old lives with his parents. He doesn't have a criminal history. I think the platform itself was in existence from 2017. It had been a slow burn over the last couple of years, but it was starting to gather people who were subscribing to the platform. So from his perspective, and I think this was marketed as an unhackable network, and I think there was a degree of confidence and trust that evolved in that.
How does a computer geek, an alleged computer geek, rub shoulders with high-end criminals? How does that relationship become?
Well, through relationships, but he's a computer. He's a computer geek, but we'll allege he was driven by profit. He wanted to make illicit funds or money off his criminal activity.
But he knew that he had to do that by rubbing shoulders with the heavies.
Yep.
The hard entry on the house this morning, neighbours have said to us that it was a lot of noise quite early in the morning when you raided his house yesterday. Can you tell us why you needed to do that, given that I don't believe there's a suggestion that he's a physically dangerous person who has weapons?
In that instance, it was really important to get entry to the house very quickly. The administrator has the ability to wipe the communications on the system as an administrator, so it's very important that we could enter that house quickly, and our tactical teams were able to secure him and the devices with under 30 seconds for the entry. So the purpose is about that evidence preservation.
We had Operation Hindsight, which
Yeah.
was revealed in 2021. Now we've got this. Is encrypted messaging apps that criminals use starting to become an advantage to law enforcement rather than a hindrance, because you're able to go in overtly? They think that they're not being listened to at all. They're freely just speaking on these things. You're collecting the evidence. Is it starting to turn into an advantage for law enforcement?
If only it was that easy. I mean, we get to stand here and celebrate this success. It's this particularly difficult work, and I think encrypted platforms are a significant threat to organised crime. It's a closed club run by criminals for criminals to facilitate criminal activity. It's a particularly serious challenge for law enforcement to be able to get behind the veil and see these encrypted messages. Yes, we've had success, but I think the threat and the challenge still continues.
You've got success now, but it's been going for 9 years. So do you have any idea what may have occurred in those previous years when you cracked this case?
No, we don't have knowledge of that, but what we can show is what we've done over the last 6 months, the degree of criminality we've identified through that, and the charges and arrests that have flowed from that.
So there was, what you've uncovered suggests there was a bit going on in the previous 9 years.
Listen, it's fair to say there's a lot going on in the criminal environment at the minute, and again, obviously working with our state and territory partners, it's a busy time.
Would you have thought he was a little bit nervous after you broke a norm that might have slowed things up, thinking, hang on, we better be careful about?
Well, I think this is a business. So once a competitor gets taken out, that provides an opportunity for other competitors to fill that space. And I think what we saw through this case, well, alleged through this case, he started to fill that space.
How lucrative is this alleged network for the alleged mastermind behind it?
So,
How much money?
Yeah, I think in terms of handsets and initial subscriptions, it was over $2,500, and then ongoing subscriptions in relation to access to the encrypted platform. So highly lucrative.
Is the AFP aware of any other encrypted messaging apps that may or may not be used by criminal networks at the moment, other than yours?
Yes.
Can you tell us what they are?
No, but hopefully we'll be back here in 12 months' time telling you about those ones. Yeah.
Does the AFP think that this case will be different to anon cases which are currently being challenged before the courts in terms of the legality of
Yeah.
those messages?
I mean, I think one of the reasons why these cases are being challenged before the courts is because we're going up after the top end of town in terms of organised crime criminals. So they're going to do everything and they're entitled to in terms of challenging these matters before court. I think Kraken is different than Anom. I think with Anom and Ironside, we in effect set up the platform with the FBI. With this, with Operation Kraken, the platform was in existence, so it was the ability for the AFP to de-encrypt those messages. So similar legislation, but a different approach on how we went about it. Will we face challenges at court? I think we probably will, but I think that's the nature of our business.
But do you feel you're on a better legal, you're in a better legal position on this one than an Ironside because of that difference?
I think we're in a good legal position in relation to Ironside. And I think we're in a good legal position in relation to this one. We've used the same legislation. We've adopted a slightly different approach, but we're confident in both cases. Very confident.
What more can you tell us about the people who've been charged, the alleged users of this ghost app?
We've seen a variety of people on the platform. We've got outlaw motorcycle gangs, we've got Hells Angels, Mongols, Sphinx, Comancheros, we've got Italian organised crime, a lot of money laundering, drug trafficking. So it's the whole gambit of criminal activity undertaken, and of course the violence as well.
And you did mention, I understand, it was a domestic violence matter that you sort of intervened. Can you talk about that?
There is domestic violence on the platform that was identified, and that is harm, and we would certainly intervene in those situations.
Last question.
Is there likely to be more arrests?
Yes, there will be.
All right,
Thank you.
Serious criminals carry out serious crimes. To try to evade police, many well-resourced criminals use dedicated encrypted communication devices that enable end-to-end encryption, which scramble messages when they are sent and unscrambles them when the receiver opens them. Despite criminals' best efforts, numerous dedicated encrypted communications platforms have been infiltrated and/or dismantled by law enforcement over the last decade. In 2018, the AFP and FBI secretly worked with a covert human source to distribute their own dedicated encrypted communications devices called Anom. However, what criminals did not know was that the AFP had devised a way to track and decrypt all their messages sent on Anom, and in near real time. Millions of messages were sent between criminals over 3 years, allowing the AFP and its law enforcement partners to prevent threats to kill, seize illicit drugs, weapons and dirty cash, and importantly, identify those using Anom to enable arrests and charges. Under AFP Operation Ironside, hundreds of alleged offenders in Australia and those targeting Australia from offshore were charged. Some have since returned to Australia and remain before the court. So far, more than 60 offenders in Australia have pleaded guilty or have been found guilty by courts and are collectively serving about 300 years imprisonment. Despite these efforts, some are slow to learn. In 2021, the AFP was approached by the French gendarmerie in relation to a dedicated encrypted communications platform involving hundreds of Australian users. Again, the AFP's Uber Smart Tech members set about developing a method to identify users of this platform, which included a 32-year-old man from Sydney who the AFP will allege was the creator and the administrator of this platform called Ghost. Ghost enabled encrypted messages between users of the platform, had self-expiring messages and voice alteration. At one point in Australia, there were more than 390 active Ghost handsets. Illicit drug importations and threats to kill and harm were all allegedly planned on Ghost. The AFP will allege that Ghost has been operating since 2015 and has been marketed as a secure communications service of the future, costing about $2,350 for a handset with the Ghost app installed. The cost included a 6-month subscription that included troubleshooting for users. In parallel to the AFP's Operation Kraken that was established to investigate Australian users, Europol set up Operational Task Force Next. As to how the AFP were able to infiltrate this allegedly impenetrable end-to-end encryption platform, we can't say too much, but we can reveal that the AFP's digital surveillance techs developed a solution to which allowed the AFP to access data on Ghost's Australian-based handsets, including the encrypted messages of criminal users of the platform. Operation Kraken will allow the AFP and international partners to target even more organised criminals who thought they could outsmart police. Once again, the AFP was a step ahead. You may be thinking, what's next? Well, stay tuned, because the AFP's next significant disruption is already being planned.